Hey guys, how's it going? We're back with another video, and I've been putting this one off for a while because I'm disappointed in this guitar. This is a Fender Jag-Stang. This is a Japanese Fender Jag-Stang. What is the Fender Jag-Stang? Well, Kurt Cobain, you may have heard of him. He's the guitar player, singer, songwriter for the band Nirvana. He printed out a picture of a Mustang, printed out a picture of a Jaguar, cut it down the middle, glued it together, mailed it to Fender, and said, hey, can you make this? Also, I want it to have the neck from my favorite Mustang. Can you make a neck like that? And they did. They made it. They sent him a few prototypes, which he didn't like. He played them like twice, 3 times. His tech worked on him because he wasn't happy with them, and then he died. And then Fender, being the capitalists that they are, were like, oh no, so sad he died. We're going to make him and sell him to the general public now. Boom. Let's make him in Japan. Cheap and fast as possible. Send them back to the States. People will buy them up. And they did. It didn't really work out the way they thought it would. People bought them, and it has grown a cult following, and there's really nothing like it in the Fender lineup. But it didn't sell well enough, and Fender discontinued it, and then they brought it back, then discontinued it. Again, I think for the final time in like 2004-ish. And then 15-ish years later, they said, oh no, it's back again, here you go. They used like the McRib model or something, where they're like, we're going to make it go away and then bring it back. So they brought it back. This time it's made in Mexico. This is not one of those. This is one of the original Japanese ones. I first heard about this guitar from Musician's Friend magazine. You might remember that. You probably know the website. It's now owned by Guitar Center. But anyway, there used to be a print magazine that they'd send to your house every quarter or so. And I remember looking at one time, and I found 2 guitars in it that I absolutely loved and really wanted. One of them was a Fender Tornado, which I was very wrong. It was not called a Tornado, it's a Toronado. And a Fender Jag-Stang. I knew nothing about Nirvana at the time, I knew nothing about Kurt at the time. I just thought it was a really cool looking logo here. I thought it was a really funny looking body, and I wanted one. Forgot about them for a while until they were reissued. Reminded me, and then I found this one used recently for a pretty good price, so I picked it up. By the way you can tell if it's Japanese, if all you can see is the front of the guitar, the G in Jag and the G in Stang, the little horizontal line, if it's long enough for you to see a line, it's Mexican. If it's short like this, then it's Japanese. So that's just a quick tip for you. So Fender, by the way, the other thing, I just have to go on a tangent here. They sell this as a signature guitar, which I don't think it is. I mean, Kurt only played this guitar a handful of times and he didn't like it. So, I don't know, that'd be like selling an Eddie Van Halen signature guitar, but it's one that he played privately in his bedroom 3 times before he died. And then they're going to sell it as his signature, when he's more well known for other guitars. But anyway, they sell those too, by the way, the Kurt Cobain Jaguar. Anyway, so here it is. This is the Jag-Stang. And what is it on a technical level? Well, like I said earlier, it's a Jaguar and a Mustang body shape thing, but it's mostly just a Mustang. The only thing that's Jag about this guitar at all is the weird shape being appended to a Mustang. Otherwise, it's just a Mustang with slanted pickups and a humbucker. That's it. It's got your Mustang controls. It comes with 250K pots, by the way, 250K, which I don't think is appropriate for a humbucker, but whatever. I swapped those out for 500. That's the first thing I did. It's got the slanted humbucker right here. Now, you'll notice this is not stock. So the humbucker this guitar came with originally supposedly sucks, so almost everybody replaces them. And the one this came with was way too muddy for me. So as an experiment, I got rid of it. I installed this, which is the most ice-picky humbucker that I have, with the thought of you can always take treble away. You can't add it if it's missing. So that's why I installed that, and we'll get to the sound test in a second. Then you got a single coil, which they describe as like a vintage overwound single coil. You have standard Mustang switching. The way this works is there's one switch for each pickup. This switch in either direction turns this pickup on. It sounds identical up or down. This switch, same, up or down, turns this pickup on, regardless of direction. Where the direction matters, by the way, middle is off, is if they're both on. So if they're both flipped in the same direction, either both down or both up, it just turns them both on like normal. But if they're in opposite directions, like one's down and one is up, either way, it puts them out of phase. It gives it a very nasally kind of a sound. Okay? Move up to the neck. The neck is the most interesting part of this guitar. It is a 725 radius, which is a very, very round radius. Very vintage radius. And the shape is a C shape. I would call it a vintage C. It's not like a super chunky one. It's not a super thin one either. It's a very unique feel that I gotta say, I don't hate it. It's pretty comfortable to play. I don't have anything like this. I've got 50 guitars and none of them feel like this one. For better or for worse. Mostly for better. It's a pretty comfortable neck. I prefer it over a lot of my other Fender necks, to be honest with you. It's rosewood, of course. This was before they started using Faro and Indian Laurel and crap like that. You've got your vintage tuners, which are the best tuners ever, in my opinion. It's got the slot in it, so you just go whomp, bend it over, wind it, done. Don't have to worry about it. That's what they have there. Of course, you've got Jag-Stang in a really cool font. I really like the way that looks aesthetically. And then on the back, you've got designed by Kurt Cobain. Don't know if you can see that, but it says designed by Kurt Cobain. Oh, and the Mustang vibrato system as well. Now, we had a hell of a time with this guitar when it came. It was set up rather poorly. It was very uncomfortable to play. So we did a whole video on setting it up. I'll put the link on the screen somewhere right now. If I forget later, just go look it up. I did that last week. That was last week's video. I couldn't get the action as low as I wanted because this really round radius, what that means is as you lower the strings, when you bend, if you've got a bigger hill, if you think about the middle of your fingerboard as a hill, if the hill is taller, then your string is going to impact the fret sooner when you're bending, right? If it's more flat, you can bend a lot farther before it chokes, with the action a lot lower. But because of that, the action has to be a little higher than I like it, but it's not the end of the world because it's a short scale. There's 11s on this guitar, by the way. I highly recommend 11s on any Fender short scale guitar. Feels great. Nice big punchy sound. It feels very normal. It feels almost like 10s on any other guitar. So yeah, there we go. That is kind of the spec and overview of this guitar. So now without further ado, I want to go ahead and let you hear it. So first we're going to go with the neck. We've got our Marshall Origin 50 right here. And let's listen to that overwound single coil. So there you go. I think it's got a pretty good sound, to be honest with you. I really like the way that sounds. It sounds like a really good Strat single coil. Overdriven, it sounds great. I'm going to turn on my SD1. So there you go. I think that sounds pretty cool. Let's turn on this humbucker. Now one thing I want to tell you, again, I picked the most ice-picky humbucker that I've got because you can always take treble away, you can't add it if it's missing. I want you to listen to this, okay? This is a very treble-y, ice-picky humbucker with 500 K-pots. Sounds awful. So 500 K-pots, I tried a very low cap value, which allows more treble to come through, and it still sounds awful. Like, ugh. So that leads me to the conclusion that it has to be the switches. Somehow, the switches are sucking treble away. I've got switches here, right? I could just rewire them, but that might not be the problem. So that humbucker sounds not good, right? Even if it sounded good though. Well, before we get into that, let's turn both of the pickups on now, regular, both on, in phase with each other. Very muddy because of the humbucker. Now, before you get on my case, I tried it with the humbucker lowered really low, raised really high. It didn't matter. Didn't matter at all. It's very, very, very muddy. There's no definition at all. And this humbucker is really sparkly in other guitars. Let's turn it on reverse phase. Right? That sounds different. But I don't know, guys. I think it sounds bad, honestly. But that's not the stock humbucker, and you suck, and you don't know how to set your amp up, and blah blah blah. The thing is, I've got all of my EQ dimed, except for tilt, which is in the middle. Presence is at 3 o'clock. I want you to keep that in mind. I've got this thing running with almost as much treble as it can give me. And all my other guitars sound great through these settings. I understand, you know, you should set your amp for your guitar or whatever. But if it's all your guitars sound good with the settings, but one of your guitars doesn't, I'm not going to change the amp for that one guitar. I'm not going to do that. Like, this guitar's worthless to me live for that reason. And to prove to you that I'm not full of it, okay, I'm going to play this on the bridge, and then I'm going to take another guitar that has a very muddy pickup. I thought it was the muddiest humbucker ever. In fact, a video we did a couple weeks ago, I advised you not to buy this guitar because of how muddy the humbucker was. And I want you to hear how bright it sounds compared to this. So here's this one. And here's this one. And I think that is very, very, very telling. When this guitar, which I thought had the muddiest humbucker I've ever heard, and advised people not to buy it, has more bright humbucker than this, we've got a problem, don't we? So, man, I just cut myself on my strap block. Anyway, like I said, it has to be the switch. And so I have to make a decision. Is it worth fixing that? Or should I could sell it for more than I paid for it, or I could just return it for what I paid for it. Alright, so I've filmed this part multiple times. I actually have all my stuff set up out here because we're doing our band rehearsal. But anyway, I've shot this segment multiple times, and my opinion keeps changing. This video's actually been done for a few weeks now, but I keep changing the conclusion based on different experiments and different applications and uses of this guitar, and I can't quite nail down what it is, but I'm having a really hard time giving up on it. So currently what's in here is a very low output Invader looking humbucker. It's like a Chinese Invader copy for a neck position. But I put it in the bridge. I thought, okay, well maybe all of that muddiness that I was finding was because it was a really high output humbucker. Even though the pots, I changed them to 500K and all that stuff, it didn't do much of a difference. But I found out here with this Marshall behind me, my Marshall Origin 50, all the controls are turned up all the way, except Presence is turned all the way down. And I found that when you drive an amp like this, with this low output ceramic humbucker, with this Jag-Stang, it actually sounds really good. So I'm going to go ahead and play it now. So that's with no effects. That's straight into the front of the amp. And that actually sounds pretty good. It's a little bit muffly, yeah, but you know, when it's loud enough, it doesn't really matter, right? I'm going to turn on some pedals now, and you tell me what you think about how this sounds. We're going to turn on the SD one first. I'll tell you what I think. I think that sounds good. And that's why I keep coming back to this guitar. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. I have all these other guitars that have all these different humbuckers in them. You know, I've got the Jaguar, I've got a bunch of Les Pauls, I got an SG, I have multiple Strats, I have a Dean ML, I have a bunch of Berettas, Kramer Berettas, I have Beretta Special. And they all serve a different purpose, but this is the one that's like so different from all of them. It's most similar to like my Jaguar, but not really. It's very unique. It's a looker. When you see this guitar on stage or elsewhere, you take a second look. Maybe you're taking a second look so you can be like, oh man, I gotta rip that guy for having a stupid guitar. Maybe you look at it because you think it's cool. But yeah, so what's the final verdict on this guitar for me? It's a great platform to mod, I have to say. It is a little bit expensive for what it is, but the history of the guitar, knowing that Kurt designed it, the fact that it's Japanese, that it's a really weird guitar that not very many people have, makes me want to keep it and makes me want to make it work. Not to mention the neck is really cool. 24-inch scale length on the guitar with a really slim 725 radius and a very slim feeling neck. It's a very comfortable neck to play, and I don't own anything like this. This is like one of a kind for me. So I think I am going to keep it. So there you go. I finally filmed what I believe to be the real outro of this video, and I can finally post it instead of sitting on it and reshooting this part over and over and over again. So please like, please subscribe, please join the Discord if you haven't already. The link is in the description below. I thank you all so much for sticking around. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time, and keep on rocking.